You're listening to Weird Medicine with Dr. Steve on the Riotcast Network, riotcast.com.
I need some touching. In the garage.
I've got diphtheria crushing my esophagus. I've got Ebola virus dripping from my nose. I've got the leprosy of the heart valve, exacerbating my inevitable woes. I want to take my brain out and blast it with the wave, an ultrasonic, echographic, and a pulsating shave. I want a magic pill for all my ailments, the health equivalent of Citizen Kane. And if I don't get it now in the tablet, I think I'm doomed and I'll have to go insane. I want a requiem for my disease, so I'm paging Dr. Steve. Dr. Steve.
It's Weird Medicine, the first and still only uncensored medical show in the history of broadcast radio, now a podcast. I'm Dr. Steve, and this is a show for people who had never listened to a medical show on the radio or the internet. You got a question you're embarrassed to take to your regular medical provider if you can't find an answer anywhere else, give us a call at 347-766-4323. That's 347-POOHEAD, believe it or not. Visit our website at drsteve.com for podcast, medical news, and stuff you can buy. Or go to our merchandise store at cafepress.com/weirdmedicine. Most importantly, we are not your medical providers. Take everything you hear with a grain of salt. Don't act on anything you hear on this show without talking it over with your doctor, nurse practitioner, physician assistant, pharmacist, chiropractor, acupuncturist, yoga master, physical therapist, clinical laboratory scientist, registered dietitian, or whatever. All right, very good. Hey, don't forget to check out feals.com, feals.com/fluid. If you would like to try some, pharmaceutical grade CBD for whatever. People ask me, what does that work? Well, it's like, for what? What do you want to do? There's a lot of different data out there. I'm not pushing it for any particular thing, but if you're interested in trying it, feals.com/fluid. It's feals.com/fluid. You get 20% off. 50% off your first order if you sign up for a subscription. So you sign up for a monthly subscription, but you can cancel it. So with no hassles, so they tell me. So let me know if you decide to try it. Don't forget stuff.drsteve.com, stuff.drsteve.com for all your online shopping needs. That really helps us the most. And we really appreciate you using that link. It takes you straight to Amazon. If you want to go there, you just click through, or you can scroll down and see all the different things that we talk about on this show, and you can purchase those, including the Navage mechanized neti pot. It doesn't make you look like a lunatic. So it's very cool. Try it out. Stuff.drsteve.com. Don't forget tweakedaudio.com. TWEAKED audio.com. Offer code FLUID for 33% off. That's 1/3 of the best earbuds on the market for the price and the best customer service anywhere. And if you want to lose weight with your old pal, Dr. Steve, and hit your ideal body weight like me for the first time since college, go to noom.drsteve.com. You get 2 free weeks, and you'll get 20% off if you do decide to purchase it. There's no points. It's a psychology app. It's about the psychology of eating. It's not a diet. That you get a counselor, you get a group. You get all kinds of cool crap, little mini modules that you do every day. It just takes about 5 minutes to get your day started. Noom.drsteve.com. And so in just a 3-month program, you only have to do it for a little while and get back to your ideal body weight. And premium.drsteve.com if you want archives of this show. So, and then we have something new, and we don't get anything from this. We're going to talk about it later on in the show as well. Is go to tripp.com and use offer code DRSTEVE, DRSTEVE, and you can get 20% off their virtual reality mindfulness app, and it is unbelievable. That's what the rest of the show is going to be about today, and we're going to do an interview with Nanea Reeves, who is the CEO of Tripp.com. And then when we come back from the interview, I will do some of your medical questions. So hang in there.
You're listening to Weird Medicine.
Since 2018, Tripp has established themselves as the industry pioneer in immersive wellness. What the heck is that? We're going to talk to its creator, Nanea Reeves, in just a second. They use virtual reality to deliver experiences targeting the visual and auditory systems that induce mindfulness, reduce stress. These are my claims, not necessarily theirs. Improve sleep and may even improve post-traumatic stress disorder and other conditions. Our guest today is Nanea Reeves, CEO of Trip. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I am definitely a creator, but not the only creator. We have a great team of talented people working on this. Yes.
You are, I get it. And I do want to talk about that because you have some maniacs that work for you. I'll just skip to that. Well, let's tell people what Trip is. And then I definitely want to ask you about some of the creative elements of this. So tell our listeners what it is and kind of what it does. What's its purpose?
Well, as you mentioned, Trip is an immersive wellness platform. And we are currently distributing through virtual reality because we found that the immersion of VR seems to have this multiplicative effect of anything that you put into it. And our goal with Trip is to create a toolkit of experiences that you can opt into to change the way that you feel. That was really our overarching goal. Yeah. Initially, we thought, could we take mindfulness structures and gameplay mechanics, sound frequencies, and bring them all together in the immersion of VR to hack mindfulness. So that was really our first goal. But I think overarching goal is, can you hack your mood overall and change the way you feel? So you feel more in control, or, to use one of the buzzwords, have agency over how you feel.
Sure. Well, I first became aware of you all just through the Oculus Quest app store because I was just tootling around in there because I bought a Quest for myself because I wanted to play Vader on Immortal.
So great. I love it. It's so great. I mean, we're all gamers at Trip
that's
to
even,
our core. So
that's even better. Yeah.
Gamers who meditate.
Yeah. So, and I have a very high stress job and I have multiple roles as, I'm 64, but I've got two teenagers in the house and so I'm
sorry.
No, it's awesome. It's awesome, but I come home from work and then I really start the real work of the day.
Right.
And by the end of the day, my adrenaline has just been pumping and I know it's going to kill me someday because physicians have a higher mortality rate. And I've been wanting to go to the Dharma Center or whatever to do this, to meditate or do something. Mm-hmm. And I come across this app. And for people out there who have, you're just on the go and the Quest at this point, right?
That's correct. It's TRIPP, Trip with two Ps.
That's right. Thank you.
Right.
And so I just ran across it, said, VR mindfulness or whatever the demo said. And I took the demo and it blew me away. Now,
I love that.
People are going to think, Dr. Steve's gone off the deep end. First off, it opens up and you're in this sort of, think Avatar, except even cooler environments. And each environment's different every day, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, we knew that whenever you see anyone do VR in general, there's this wow factor because you are experiencing one reality, your own reality, and then you put on this headset and you really are in a new space.
Yes.
And I think that in and of itself has the ability to trigger awe. And I can talk about some of our design principles, in a little bit, but really for us, what we noticed when people went into VR was they go, wow, and take it off and never want to do it again. And,
right.
And, many of us have, I have a closet full of old dead VR devices. And so when we were designing some of the core framework principles for Trip, we thought, how do we design this in a way that will make people want to do it again and do it regularly?
Yeah.
Because that's really where you get the efficacy of any kind of mindfulness practice is through consistency. And so at minimum, we thought, could we trigger this? Oh, I wonder what it'll be like today. And we're continuing to evolve the experience, pushing out improvements over time. I'm super excited about what it's going to look like even a year from now.
Oh, wow.
As we evolve it.
Yeah. So to give our listeners just a little idea, so you emerge into this environment, and sometimes it's an alien kind of landscape, but it's beautiful with little life forms that are sort of floating around or, just signaling their existence, and little things popping up here and there. And yesterday I was on sort of an inflatable lounge chair in this alien ocean, and it was the coolest thing. And then it does these breathing exercises, which my listeners will instantly relate to, because I'm always talking about using square breathing to break panic attacks.
Box breathing.
Right. Mm-hmm. And there are several different breathing exercises, and people think, oh, another breathing exercise. No, this is different, because when you breathe in, these sort of blue sparks flow into your nose, and as you breathe out of your mouth, they come out sort of red-shifted. And then the environment around will change as you breathe, and you can turn your head and sort of blow these sparks at some of the environmental, constructs that are in there. It's unbelievable. The illusion that is remarkable, I have to say.
I really appreciate that. And you and I met through our support channel, actually.
That's right.
You had an issue, and that's how we started talking. So one of the things we've been doing as the leadership team at TRIP is manning the support channel after our launch, because we really wanted to hear front and center the good and bad that our users were experiencing. It's easy to get disconnected on that and keep moving forward, but I was very motivated to just go and let's answer customer support tickets. Sure. And
let's throw that out to people. That's not very often that. So let me just tell people what my issue was, and it was only the one time. It was the first time I used it, and I did the sleep module. Oh, right. And so you rise after doing these. There's 2 breathing exercises on different levels, and you rise to these levels. And then I rose above this planet, and I saw this atmosphere, and I kind of got stuck in the atmosphere, and there was this beautiful music going on and these sounds sort of ping-ponging in my head, and I didn't know what was supposed to happen. I sat there maybe for 20 minutes, and is this thing ever end? And apparently that was actually a glitch, because it's supposed to be over in 8-9 minutes or something. But I actually fell asleep, so I said, well, this really works. But I emailed the company on the support line to ask, is that how it's supposed to be, or was there a glitch? And it's not very often you get the CEO of the company emailing you back on a support line. So I had
been inspired by hearing the founders of Airbnb say that when they first started their company, they went door to door and met with all the hosts and heard all their concerns and issues. And I felt like that was the right thing to do, because, our goal is, first and foremost, as a company, if we can build something that makes people feel better, then the business itself will show up behind that. We'll get the support to continue. And so, having that intention, and it starts with how are people responding to it? So I was delighted, though, that we could continue this conversation. It's helpful to me to get the feedback, but also to get the word out there, because the more people use it, the more we can evolve the service.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've used it every day since.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, every single day I've done at least one module. And something that our listeners would be interested in as well is that there is sort of there's a subjective, well, it's all subjective, of course, but you can rate your mood before you go in, and then you rate it after. And you can also just pick up, a visual analog scale. We talk about visual analog scales on this show as well for pain and stuff. And you can just rate how you feel on a scale of 1 to 10. And when you're done, you rate it again. And it is very interesting to see, well, you improved by 20%, and you went from tense and angry to calm and peaceful and all these kinds of things. It's it's a very biased sample, of course, but still very interesting to see that effect. So it brings me to the question, what kind of benefits can people expect from this? I know you don't make any medical claims.
Not yet. We are engaged in several clinical trials, and I can talk about that.
Yeah, sure.
Just staying on the topic currently, the assessments, the scales that we put in the app were designed with the support of the National Mental Health Innovation Center up at the University of Colorado on the Anschutz Medical Campus. And so it was important for us to work with subject matter experts on our product design. And we thought if we could just capture the data with every session, that awareness of your mood trends and being able to actually state it would help you identify your own pattern. So I don't know if you've used the Aura Ring for sleep tracking, but I've noticed having visibility into my sleep patterns through the ring has been helpful to even change some of my behavior around sleeping.
Yes.
I've identified optimal time to go to bed and quality of sleep I'm looking at in a way that I didn't before, just by having some level of measurement. Yeah, yep. Even if it's qualitative. And so we thought, could we do that with this idea of moods and your emotional well-being and see how you're doing? And then in our mobile app, it allows you to track that data over time, and we're actually working on a new scoring method for your mood so that you can start to see like a daily score and an overall score.
Because I've noticed, because it's one thing if you do something like this, there are a couple of studies that show that people that watch nature scenes feel better afterward, but they often fall asleep, and then when they wake up, their stress level's just right where it was before, and so that's one thing to get 8 minutes of respite. Whole nother thing to get long-term benefits, and this is just my own experience, anecdotal with an N of 1. But I have noticed that my baseline numbers when I'm rating before I do the app have actually risen over time. So in just, a week, 10 days, I might have started out, I'm rating myself at a 4, but now I start off rating myself at a 6 or 7. I can't make any claims from that, but it is interesting.
Yeah, and I think just even that you had the awareness for that as a perceived benefit, I think has some benefit to it. And I think the one thing we do know that we're doing at Trip is the mere act of you taking this time to connect to yourself and take care of yourself for 8 minutes in this container that's designed to give you a respite in and of itself has, I think, benefits. It's a behavioral change. And our goal is not to replace any kind of mindfulness practice. I have a deep meditation practice that has influenced a lot of the design principles of the product. But it's really, can we be an onboarding mechanism for you to start to look at the way you're feeling?
Like a gateway drug.
Yeah, well, or what did we call it early on? A VRUG, a VRUG,
yes.
right?
Yes.
This whole new category of digital therapeutics that's emerging. It's fascinating, and VR really has a place in that category of using software to in therapeutic use cases.
Yeah. Well, I've looked at some of the research that's been pretty well demonstrated that delta sound waves in the sort of binaural audio therapy have effects on anxiety.
Yep.
And I read just one study on patients with pre-surgery anxiety. So I have some theta waves. Theta binaural sound waves are also helpful with relaxation, anxiety reduction. So let me play them, and then maybe I'm putting you on the spot because I know you're an entrepreneur and not necessarily a scientist, but you're deeply immersed in this. I just wonder if you can explain sort of what delta and theta waves are. But let me play them just for a second for everybody. Now, if you're listening on headphones, there's a stereo effect to this where things seem to be passing through your brain, which is an illusion, of course. So I'll just let those go in the background. And see, I'm starting to get relaxed already. So what are we listening to? How is that different from just me getting on my synthesizer, which, by the way, I have a nice electronic music studio here in the Weird Medicine Studios as well.
Right.
How is that different than me just noodling around on my Oberheim OB6?
Yeah, well, I will say that all music has an effect on a human. And, there's studies on certain classical music pieces that can be used to de-stress, even improve productivity. And there's a fairly decent amount of research on that. With sound waves, we thought, let's incorporate binaural audio. We do put in theta and delta into the experience.
Sure.
That's why we ask you to select, do you want deep relaxation or sleep preparation in our calm trip? Trip is definitely better with headphones rather than the in-device sound so that you can get the binaural effect.
Okay.
But binaural audio can be somewhat dissonant in its sound. I think it has a tendency at times to sound a bit spooky. And so we worked very closely with Justin Beretta from the Glitch Mob, who's our creative director, to incorporate binaural audio in a way in our calm trip that was still pleasing. And so we really hit it much harder in that part where you levitate in the experience and you go up. And we're actually going to make some changes so that you don't hear the voiceover meditation during that part, and you can get the full effect of the binaural audio with this feeling of embodiment as you float up, even though you're sitting. These are some of the things we can do in VR that I think have some transcendent properties and can also stimulate different responses, just even awe or connection, deep states of gratitude, which can affect your vagus nerve, starting with you just feeling more compassionate toward your own life experience and your own self. I know that sounds a little woo-woo, but there definitely are benefits to that. It's a real thing.
So stimulating the vagus nerve, you brought up something that's interesting to me because we do vagal nerve stimulation for chronic pain.
Right.
And there is a branch of one of the nerves going to the helix of the ear that actually interfaces directly with the vagus nerve, so you can you can access it from outside the body. Is that what you're talking about? How are you stimulating the vagus nerve?
It's not so much stimulation, it's more activation.
Okay.
And so it's different than doing the manual stimulation that you're talking about, which is, very effective, but can also be invasive.
Right.
But there are things that you can do to activate it. There's some people will call the vagus nerve the Oprah nerve because it can be activated through images of seeing people in acts of compassion, helping other people, looking at small animals, infants as well, can stimulate this response in you.
That's fascinating. What do people need to use the Trip app? Can you do this on, say, a VR on your cell phone? The people that have let's say the Samsung that just snaps into a headset, or what do you recommend?
We are available right now on the Oculus Go and the Oculus Quest. The Oculus Go is at a very affordable price point. I think the current price they're selling it for is $149.
Yep.
So these devices have really gotten much more affordable than what they were even just a couple of years ago. And you have an Oculus Quest. I feel that's really next level. You don't need a computer for it. You just need the device itself. We like to recommend that people use headphones. And what we found with the phone devices is just that little bit of latency from the phone to the VR device, even though it's sliding in. That's really, I think, what was causing in the early days a lot of the motion sickness that people were experiencing. And a lot of the manufacturers have deprecated that functionality now. Because of that, we've got these great devices. Because of devices like the Oculus Go and the Quest, I will say that the research now is really evolving on using VR to address different mental health issues and even some physical in the area of pain management. Right. We're doing a research project funded by the NIH right now in addiction recovery. A two-phased grant was received to do this, and we're really excited about that. For me personally, my family has been devastated by the impact or effects of drug addiction. I lost my sister to a drug overdose about 5 years ago. I know. It's, I think the most painful thing any family can go through is to watch someone you love just completely destroy themselves through addiction, and you feel very powerless over it. And I know that I'm definitely not alone. And just from a pragmatic standpoint as well, in the workplace, issues with addiction can have a huge effect. And so, we're excited about the ability to be able to go do evidence-based research and start to see how we can use our technology and evolve it in ways that can support different indications, be an intervention for different problems.
Yeah, I'm going to be applying for a grant. I called the research department at our cancer center this morning before this call, and we're going to be applying for a grant to try to use TRIP for chemotherapy or anxiety in the chemo suite. And we're going to have to come up with validated instruments to to measure anxiety and maybe some other parameters before and after. And then we got to come up with like a nature landscape environment that we can use as our quote unquote placebo.
Yeah, the sham.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. And, well, we have a nature environment in our more content section in the videos, so we certainly could use even within the same. We'd love to support you with that. Okay. Anything we can do to provide the devices, and I'd be happy to share with you some of the IRBs that we've had approved. That
would be great.
I'm going to New York next week to kick off a new research study on reducing anxiety in a psychotic and schizophrenic population. Weirdly enough, they respond better to these fantasy environments on some initial feasibility testing that the researchers had done. The frame to go into an environment where they had some real world frame of reference, but then the sensory dissonance, so if you're on a beach and you don't smell beach or feel beach, the brain kind of goes on high alert, at least in this population, like what's wrong? kind of like an uncanny valley response that you get with robots.
Absolutely.
And so, we had read some early research. I can't remember. I think it might have come out of UCLA on that sensory dissonance in virtual reality. And so we made some design assumptions that if we brought familiar objects in, like a seahorse or something that you go, oh, I know what that is, but we put it in environments that you've never experienced before.
There's no expectation.
Right. And that might trigger an ability for you to let go and relax into it with a wow or awe kind of response.
Yeah, that's fascinating because you're putting people in an environment where there's zero expectations of smelling anything because they're in a sort of, an otherworldly place.
Yeah.
And so
what does space smell like?
Yeah, right.
Right.
I don't know.
Exactly.
It's fascinating.
Today's episode is brought to you by Angie. Angie has made it easier than ever to connect with skilled professionals to get all your jobs and projects done well. Let me tell you, there's the version of it where you try to do something at home, and then there's a version of it where you have someone help you, you watch them do it the right way, and you go, thank God I didn't try to do that myself. I have fully done things around the home that I think look good, and then a bang in the night, and I wake up to a shelf collapsing, a painting falling off the wall. I've seen it all go south. I own a home, and I can tell you, I know how much work it can take. Whether it's everyday maintenance and repairs or making dream projects a reality, it can be hard just to know where to start. But now all you need to do is Angie that and find a skilled local pro who will deliver the quality and expertise you need. Whatever your home project, big or small, indoor or outdoor, you can Angie that and connect with skilled professionals to get the project done well. Right now, one of my wish lists is I want a bike for my condo in Milwaukee, and I would love to rig it up on a pulley in the ceiling because I have one of those like lofted ceilings, but I'm so scared to try that on my own. Angie has 20 years of home experience, and they've combined it with new tools to simplify the whole process. Bring them your project online or with the Angie app. Answer a few questions and Angie can handle the rest from start to finish, or help you compare quotes from multiple pros and connect instantly, which means you can take care of any home project in just a few taps. Because when it comes to getting the most out of your home, you can do this when you Angie that. Download the free Angie mobile app today or visit Angie.com. That's ANGI.com.
Let me ask you, what maniacs code your landscapes? Because these are not normal people.
That's funny. And we're starting to open up our toolkit to other developers to design trip experiences. So I've been searching for more maniacs out there.
I just don't get H.R. Geiger. The worst thing that could happen is, Trip decides to do a Halloween edition and start. You turn around and start seeing scary things because that would terrify me. I'm so
well. A lot of the early VR experiences, and it's weird. They're very popular. Are basically designed to scare the crap out of you.
Zombies coming from behind you and all this stuff. I mean, it's loads of fun, but it really gets my adrenaline pumping. That's in no way stress reducing.
No, and I think in the wrong context, it could actually, we have to be responsible.
Of course.
And I think, we saw that and we thought, well, could we take that same powerful effect to make you feel like you're, hanging off of a cliff or being attacked by zombies for real? Could we,
of course.
Could we use those same principles to help you de-stress? Let's start with de-stressing and be less agitated, and maybe insert a little pause so you don't really send that email that you're furiously writing. And these things will have major benefits. They're the same kind of benefits that you get from a deep meditation practice, but we find that adherence to a daily practice is really, I think, an issue for a lot of people. We know we should do these things, just like working out, but how do we stick with it? I think the motivation becomes more of the challenge. So I think VR, mobile apps, all of these things have a place to be assistance to help us, but ultimately you're the one that has to build that muscle. And so going back to the maniacs designing it, they'll start to create stuff and think, wow, this looks really cool. And then I'm sort of the person that goes, yeah, but how is that supposed to make someone feel?
Right.
And so we look at a lot of research around, and some of it is pseudoscience that we'll look at, but it has some design principles. The way we incorporate sacred geometry. We read some research on the fact that fractals have a pleasing effect on the mind, and that might be the reason why when we take psychedelics, our brain produces patterns because it's trying to stabilize itself.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, me neither. Was that the laugh track? I love
Yes,
that.
Of course.
I need one of those in my life. Even that, we should do like I want to do a bunch of trips that have guided meditations from comedians. I think there's some joy to laughing, right?
Absolutely. I agree.
They're very healing. There's even like a whole practice you can do about smiling when you're unhappy, even if it's forced. It's those muscles that can actually lift your mood. So we're looking at all these different things, but it always goes back to, how is this going to make you feel, right? Are these colors calming and pleasing? And what's interesting is that can vary by region, because red in the West, is used to generate energy or even anxiety, which is why a lot of fast food restaurants use it. They want to get you in and out. But in Asia, red, has very different properties to how people respond to it. It's considered a lucky color.
Sure.
It's what you wear when you get married. And so we have to be able to shift our content to the individual. So when you do Trip and you give us those baseline and endpoint mood reads and you rate the session, we use that data in our platform to understand, what does Dr. Steve respond to differently than what Aurora, our QA and product manager person respond to, and capturing that data and looking at the variances. So we've already have noted that men seem to relax more floating in space, being above ground, and women seem to like environments that are more terrain focused, where they're closer and more grounded.
That's fascinating. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, well, I could come up with a bunch of different hypotheses for that, but that is a really interesting finding. And of course, you do both in the Trip experience.
We do, yeah.
Speaking about floating in space, when we ascend to look down on the Earth, like the space baby in 2001, why do we always see California? Could we see another part of the country at some point?
Yeah, or even the world. They I don't think it's working quite right. It's supposed to be where you're located, but I think it might be coded to where our office is located.
Okay.
So
funny.
Thanks for continuing to debug our product, Dr.
There you go.
Steve.
That is hilarious.
But we're going to add some features. One of the things that we're working on for that is, the whole point of that experience is we really wanted to see if we could trigger the overview effect, and that the astronauts have when they go into space and they look down on the Earth. And, they come back very transformed from that experience. And so we're going to change some of it to get a deeper connection. One, we feel that, can we just use that space to help people be more mindful about, the state of our planet and the world and the community on it. And so you'll see us incorporate into that part of the experience more of a feeling of connecting to other people on the planet. We'll start to introduce a little community feature that you'll see shortly. I don't want to talk about it too much, but it's super cool. And we'll, because you're in Tennessee, right? In
That's
Nashville?
Right. Yep.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to be out there first week of March, and there's a very cool conference I'll get you an invitation to on using virtual reality in healthcare.
Oh, well, I would love
Yeah.
to go to that.
Yeah, I'll get you hooked up with that.
Please do.
And it's a very exciting community, and we're all very friendly with each other, even though at times we're competitive.
Of course.
I think that even just sharing research data, how we structure these studies, as you mentioned, having a sham VR experience, even just so you can control against the effects of immersion is important. And then what else you control against, I think, is important. And the devices now are at an affordable price. We can do research at scale.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. This is something that's really emerging. I think VR is just in its infancy, and it's already incredible. And I had the same experience that you did. I bought an Oculus Go for my kids, and they tried it a couple of times and then just kind of put it down, even though they had that wow factor. And I bought myself the Quest just for the heck of it. I didn't mess with it for the longest time. And then all of a sudden it just kind of clicked in my head. And now I'm a very regular user. And like I said, every night before I go to bed, I'm hitting the Trip app. So it's quite wonderful. If you want to try out Trip, get out your Oculus Go or Oculus Quest and find it in the Oculus store. Use the offer code DRSteve and get 20% off. And by the way, that's just for Weird Medicine listeners. I don't get anything from that. This is not like we've got some sort of affiliate agreement. They just want you guys to try it. So you get 20% off. And there is a demo version where you can try out the focus module. And Nanea is the narrator. I realized that about halfway through this interview. I recognized your voice. So,
yeah, and my co-founding partner Zach Norman is the voice on Calm, and yeah, we're hoping, as we grow our audience, we can bring in new voice talent as well as enable different languages. And so anybody who also wants to subscribe, there is a 7-day free trial that you can cancel any time in if it's something that you feel is not helpful to you. But we would love to get people using the product. It only helps us be better as well and create more experiences.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. It's the greatest thing in the world. Before we close, have you played the game Red Matter on the Oculus, by the way?
No.
Okay.
Is that on the Quest?
It is. It's on the Quest. The textures in it are so realistic, and the puzzles aren't very, very difficult. It's a fun game. But the reason I bring it up is at the very last module, mild spoiler, you're on a moon of Saturn, and you go outside and you look up, and there is Saturn, as it would look as if you were standing on the moon Rhea. And I'm just telling you, I wouldn't mind if every once in a while I ended up my Trip thing, floating around Saturn or something.
Oh, yeah, I love that. People have been sending us their recommendations, which
sure.
we love.
Good.
We
good.
love it. And one feature, have you tried the mobile upload of your own pictures into the experience, into the focus trip?
Absolutely.
I love that feature. I mean, just for me personally, I've used it. I used it on the anniversary of my late husband's death. He passed away from cancer
I'm sorry.
4 years ago. Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's always a sad day when you hit that anniversary of the loss of a loved one. And, this past April, I was able to upload pictures of him and hold space, for quite a bit of time, just honoring our journey, and really feeling a deep sense of gratitude in a way that was so empowering, and then take off the headset and go about my day into my new life. And it was the first moment that I really understand that just by exposing these little tools to people, they can find their own way through that. We have another man who has liver cancer, using our product regularly finds that it helps him get a little distraction from the pain that he experiences. And he's uploaded images of himself when he was healthy to remind himself who he is when he's feeling, so it's, I think a really powerful tool. And we love hearing the stories from our users on how they use it. Someone else sent us a note saying they set their New Year's goals by uploading, what they want to be or what they want to accomplish. And they meditate on that in Trip. So I love that.
Yeah, people won't understand what we're talking about till they try it. So I absolutely go try it, and you'll see. If you do the focus trip, you'll see what we're talking about. There are these sort of orbs that move when you move your head, and they'll have different. When you start off, it's just pictures of happy people, kids, and animals and stuff. And of course, my experience with uploading isn't nearly as impactful as yours. I've got a picture of a hippopotamus that I took when we were at. At Disney World, so it's not nearly as impactful, but it does give me sort of warm fuzzies as I remember a great family trip. So, I can see so many uses for this, and thank you for being on here. I have
welcome.
to just tell you,
it's
I'm
my pleasure.
Just the hugest fan, and I look forward to actually incorporating this into my research. I've got quite a few publications in the national, or in the medical literature, and I look forward to becoming part of this sort of research community of people doing medical research in virtual reality, because I just think it's got such potential.
That's great, and we're happy to support you in that effort. And thank you so much for the exposure to your audience. It means a lot to us all, the entire Trip team. Thank you.
Thank you again. So Nanea Reeves, CEO of Trip. You can see her work and her company at trip.com. And don't forget, if you want to try it out, use the offer code DRSteve for 20% off. Nanea Reeves, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're listening to Weird Medicine.
Well, that was, I found that fascinating. Could you tell your old pal Dr. Steve is excited about that? I haven't actually been excited about something like this in a long time. And particularly not to actually cause myself extra work and call the research department, get an IRB, to work on a grant and an IRB approval to do a clinical trial in our cancer center. I'm very excited about that. I'll report back when I know more. But if you try it and you like it, let me know. You can do the demo for free. You can do the 7 days for free. Anyway, that's, I get nothing from that. I just, I think it's awesome. So anyway, all right, let's take some phone calls. I probably...
Hey, Dr. Steve, it's Scott. A very long-time listener since O&A and all through your podcasting, but first time reaching out. Over the past year or so, I've been experiencing some very annoying heart PVCs, preventricular contractions, a lot of them, all the time, really. And they got so annoying and worrisome to me that back in November, I got my doctor and a cardiologist specialist had the following tests done. We had an EKG, we had a 14-day Holter monitor. It wasn't actually a Holter monitor.
That's not a Holter monitor. What he had was an event monitor, I'll guarantee you. So let me get everybody on the same page. He's talking about premature ventricular contractions. So this is when the ventricle contracts prematurely, hence the name. And most people have these and don't feel them, but sometimes you'll feel it as a skipped beat. You'll feel like it's a skipped beat. We'll talk about why it's not exactly a skipped beat, but something different. And but let's see what he had an event monitor, which is a monitor you can wear for an indefinite period of time. And anytime you have one of these episodes, you push a button on it. A Holter monitor will record every heartbeat for 24 to 48 hours, and then they'll scan it looking for crazy arrhythmias and stuff like that. This is for something that doesn't happen every day. So,
taped to my chest with a Bluetooth phone. Again, for 14 days. An echocardiogram was done, and then the big one was a CT coronary angiogram with contrast.
Nice.
Pain. So, for all that rigor, it was a lot, but I wanted to rule out everything, and after all that, everything seemed fine. The test revealed I have a perfectly normal heart with normal valves, walls, etc. and about 9% cholesterol blockage. Everyone so far has said the PVCs, which showed up all over the 14-day monitor and a couple in the regular EKG, are okay. And nothing to worry about. They claim it won't affect my life, strength, etc. They claim the recovery beat, which tends to be a little stronger,
right,
is not an elevated risk factor for stroke.
That's the one that you feel. So when you have, your heart's beating, doom, 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 and then all of a sudden you get this premature one, doom, 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 and it will pause because it tried to beat, but there really wasn't a lot of blood in the ventricle to pump out, so it just sits there. And now it's trying to repolarize, and while it's doing that, blood is still flowing into this ventricle from the other side, from the other side of the body. So the heart's starting to fill up, and it's filling up, and it's filling up. And now it's overfilling because it's taking a little bit too long. And then it goes, oh, crap, I need to beat. And it goes, doom, 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 and gets back. So it's those after beats that you often will feel. The pause itself, you don't feel so much, but it's when you get the compensatory after beats and trying to clear out the system and get the volume back to what we call homeostasis, meaning, just sort of a general average. So let's hear what he says.
Aneurysm or anything, which was a question I asked. They claim all that, but they drive me fucking insane, the PVCs, not the doctors. That's a different story. If I'm sitting, I still feel them all the time, at least one a minute if I'm paying attention. If I'm doing something, I really don't pay attention to them, but they do happen every now and then, even when I'm active. So my question is this really an okay situation? I'm concerned about quality of life because I find myself paying so goddamn much attention to them. Should I be worried here? Should I seek out more tests or other opinions? And finally, is there any actual way to stop these fuckers from happening? So really, really grateful for your time and any guidance that some guy on the radio can give.
Yeah, so PVCs, or when they're in the presence of a normal heart, are actually not considered a significant risk factor. PVCs in a diseased heart are of significant concern. But this person has had every test in the book, it sounds like. He's been to cardiologists, so they know what they're doing. And I'm assuming that an electrophysiologist took a look at him and made sure that there weren't any pathologic, circuits in the heart. Because the heart electrical device, basically, and it even has trunk lines. It's fascinating. If you ever look at Purkinje fibers, just Google that, Perkinje fibers, or look at a video of electrical conduction in the heart. It's fascinating. I've used that word way too many times in this podcast. It's very interesting to watch and very educational. Anyway, so in the presence of a normal heart with no weird pathways and short circuits and stuff like that, PVCs are considered relatively benign, but they can, as this person says, drive you insane. So there are medications you can take. They can give you medications. What I generally did for folks with symptomatic PVCs that had a normal heart was put them on a beta blocker. But of course, beta blockers can cause erectile dysfunction. So you want to get a really cardioselective beta blocker, one that really only works on the heart and nowhere else. And they make those. If you're really worried about your penis not working, then there are calcium channel blockers that can be used. There are antiarrhythmic medications, but I would stay away from those. They tend to be more expensive, and they can actually make arrhythmias worse, in rare instances. So the beta blockers and calcium channel blockers, where I'd go with that. And you don't have to live with this discomfort. And I know it's minor and it's benign, but it's driving you crazy, and you can actually get medication to take care of it. Okay, let's take another phone call.
Yo, Dr. Steve, Bobby in Texas here.
Hey, Bobby.
Now, I am dealing with my old lady.
Old lady?
Now, she is a normal, level-headed, smart woman.
Well, not for long. If you keep calling her that, are you a biker in the 70s? Oh, anyway, okay.
Or so I thought.
No judgment. No judgment. I'm just go ahead.
She's talking about this frickin' oxy powder lately, trying to get her gut flora and whatnot in check. She had a child with me. I think it's mine. 2 years ago, we had a little boy, and ever since then, pretty regularly, she's complaining of yeast infections, and or I will notice some cottage cheese-like discharge around my old meaty sausage upon completion. And I don't complete inside her, so
Hey Earl, we got any cottage cheese back there? I'm starving.
No, it's not me. I occasionally get sort of painful, maybe itchy. Seems like a yeast infection around my old balls there. She's
this guy's hilarious.
talking about getting this colon cleanse thing going on, thinking it's going to alleviate her constant yeast infections. And also she has had a problem with her acid reflux for 10 years, probably off and on. Just can't eat spicy food anymore, can't handle the food that she used to without, complaining about this constant acid reflux and these freaking yeast infections.
Okay.
I don't know if you know anything about this oxy powder crap. She says it's oxygen.
Yeah. I'm not going to trash somebody's product or anything like that, so let's just talk about colon cleanses in general. The colon is very well designed to deal with gross stuff. Its job is to reclaim water from liquid feces that's brought into the colon from the small intestine. As it passes through, water is reclaimed, and then its other job is to safely pass said fecal matter from the body to the outside world. It really doesn't have a lot of. There are other things. There may be some immune properties, and certainly there's a whole gut flora thing, mind-gut connection, and a healthy bacterial colony in the colon really makes a big difference. We're pushing healthy bacterial colonies on one hand and then basically putting bleach in our colon to quote-unquote cleanse it. I don't agree with that. And I'd like to see actual studies, if anybody has any, that shows that that's in any way beneficial. Now, people talking about, well, I've got toxins or concretions. If you're constipated, that's one thing. There are no leathery, years-long concretions in the bowel. The bowel is perfectly capable of cleansing itself completely. And anyone who's ever done a colonoscopy knows this is true. They know it's true. Anyone that's ever had one done, anyone that does them, anyone that's seen one knows that this whole myth of there being leathery concretions and that the caliber of the bowel gets smaller and smaller over time because the bowel is lined with this solid sludge that only the smallest amount of stool can pass through is complete malarkey. If you've ever done a bowel prep to have a colonoscopy, you know this is a lie because you take the bowel prep, you have liquid stool. You're not passing leathery concretions. And by the end of like the old Fleet's phosphosoda prep, you would take this stuff and stuff would be just forcefully just shooting out of your colon. And then you'd stand up and the water was as clear as a mountain stream. It's amazing. And then when you look up there, there's no concretions. It's nice pink mucous membrane all the way up through the sigmoid, transverse colon, down to the cecum, and if you're lucky and you've got a good endoscopist, they could go into that terminal ileum, look around in there. Nothing. No leathery concretions, no decrease in caliber of the bowel, unless, of course, there's a real problem like a tumor or something like that. And there wasn't any in the toilet either. So where is this stuff? It's a figment of people's imagination. And there are some of these bowel preps that are so full of fiber that and you'll see these videos of these people, they'll take a dump in the bucket and then they'll dig around with a stick and pull out these masses of just fibrous tissue and go, see? Well, no. Yeah, I see it. That came from the bowel prep that you gave them. If I give them a normal bowel prep, you won't see any of that, and their bowel will be totally clean. So don't fall for this stuff. Now, having said that, constipation, diverticulosis, messed up bowel flora can absolutely make you miserable, and so therefore eating a balanced diet high in green leafy vegetables, or a vegetarian diet, even better, supplementing your diet with soluble fiber like oat bran, or even our old friend that we haven't mentioned in quite a while. Citrus. That's the sound of the whole world having an awesome series of bowel movements after using Citrusal, which is methylcellulose, a soluble fiber that's not digestible, so it doesn't cause gas. And when I say not digestible, it's not digestible by the flora in your bowel. So, and then a probiotic. If you've taken a bunch of antibiotics and you're just feeling miserable, a probiotic can restore some of that balance to your bowel and the gut flora, and it's great. All of these things are true. But what isn't true is that unless you're wiping in the wrong way, and I don't know any women that don't know that they need to wipe from front to back. I had to think about it for a second. That there's any connection, there should not be a connection between the vagina and the bowel, unless there is a real pathologic situation like a rectovaginal fistula or something like that. That's where you have an actual physical connection between the rectum and the vaginal wall. Because the bacteria that are in the vagina stay there. They don't seep through the skin and the mucous membrane or the membrane in the vagina and then somehow get into the colon, and vice versa. There's a very nice barrier there that keeps that from happening. So anyway, so to finish the question, fixing the bowel isn't necessarily going to do anything at all for her recurrent yeast infections. So people will say, well, if you eat yogurt, well, I don't understand that one either, because I'm not sure how the lactobacillus, which is proof that God has a sense of humor, that the same bacteria that makes yogurt is the same bacteria that makes a healthy internal vaginal flora. It's just... I don't know. I guess it's just efficiency. Why create yet a different bacteria for that when one will do for both just perfectly nicely? But because of that, plain yogurt that's cultured has lactobacillus in it. So there have been people that have done a yogurt douche to repopulate the vagina with good bacteria. Now, you wonder, why does this keep coming back? One possibility is it's never gone completely away. Make sure that you're following the treatment instructions completely and finish all your medicine. You can't just go until the discharge goes away, that sort of cottage cheesy discharge. You have to take it and finish it. And if it comes back, switching to a different anti-yeast medication may be helpful, but again, you got to follow through. And, if you're doing anything like taking antibiotics, those can lower the amount of good bacteria in the vagina itself. Uncontrolled diabetes, hormonal birth control, spermicidal creams and jellies. All of these things can alter the balance of bacteria in the vagina, allowing more of this yeast to grow. It's called Candida species. Now, there is some theories that wearing wet or tight clothing, like sweaty gym clothes and stuff like that, or thongs that don't allow that area to sort of just naturally breathe. It's not like it respires, but you know what I mean. Being open to the environment can create this sort of environment where yeast can grow. There's really no research supporting that anything that you're eating, it will either help or make this worse. So anyway, talk to your OBGYN, see what you can do. Now, it's not impossible. The dude, in this case, he said that he had it at the base. He may be giving it back to her. So there are times when we will treat both partners at the same time. So the female gets some cream that she can introduce intravaginally, and then the male will get a cream that he just sort of slathers on. I love that word, slather, when you're dealing with this kind of thing. You just slather it on, and do it for the same duration, and make sure that it's neither one of you have a reservoir of yeast. And then when you do that, often this can be prevented. All right? So see your OBGYN. That's the most important thing. Thanks always go to Dr. Scott, even when he's not here. You can't forget Rob Sprance, Bob Kelly, Greg Hughes, Anthony Cumia, Jim Norton, Travis Teft, Lewis Johnson, Paul Obcharski, Eric Nagel, Roland Campos, Sam Roberts, Pat Duffy, Dennis Falcone, Ron Bennington, and Fez Watley, who's an early supporter of this show, has never gone unappreciated. Listen to our SiriusXM show on the Faction Talk channel, SiriusXM channel 103, Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern, on demand, and other times at Jim McClure's pleasure. Many thanks go to our listeners whose voicemail and topic ideas make this job very easy. Go to our website at drsteve.com for schedules and podcasts and other crap. Until next time, check your stupid nuts for lumps. Quit smoking and get off your asses and get some exercise. We'll see you in 1 week for the next edition of Weird Medicine.